How's it going? My name is Brent from Encore PPF and Tint, and today we have a 2025 Kia K5 in here. Now this is the EX model, and there's only a kit for the GT model currently in the computer, and it's first generation, which just basically means it's brand spanking new in Core. Now, I think that this kit is going to fit on this bumper with some trimming necessary, and then we're going to have to bulk these areas here. These areas are not in the computer correctly at all. So if you take a look at the bumper difference between the two, it's basically that this comes straight across here, and so this part right here is cut off and is part of this bumper. The middle is different, and then this part here doesn't exist as a secondary color. This bumper comes all the way up into this area. So some modifications we're going to be making to this kit when we install it by just trimming those areas off. And then this area is going to have to be bulked, as well as probably the center section here is going to need to be bulked, because this is a separate piece on that other bumper on the GT line. So let's go ahead and get started on this. All right, so I've already clay barred this and everything, so we're ready to get this on here. So we washed, pressure washed out all the edges really well, so there shouldn't be any dirt hiding anywhere. And then clay barred, and now we're ready to put this on here. All right, so we're just going to kind of lay this on here pretty close to where it's going to be when we're doing the install. Obviously there's a decent amount of stretch because I got the other side lined up real well, and then this side's off by there's like at least a ½ inch there, so you know there's going to be quite a bit of stretch, or not quite a bit, but there's going to be some stretch for sure. And there you can see that's the first look at the difference in the two bumpers. As far as I can tell, that's going to be about it. It so far does look like that this is going to fit. And let's figure out now where we want to start from. So, you know, starting here right in the center would be a good spot. I could also see starting like right here and then coming across could also be a good spot. So either one of those areas looks fine. I think we'll go right from the center and then work our way out to the edges on this one. All right, let's get our squeegee here. We've got some slip solution on this. And actually, let's get this in place so it's not hanging here like this. Because sometimes when this is hanging here, obviously you could bump into it and get some dirt in it, or you could just catch some dirt out of the air if there happen to be some. Or also, you know, if this starts to dry and then it flaps around adhesive to adhesive, you can run into some problems with that as well. So let's just get that laid on there, and then we'll go ahead and get this pattern centered. And I'm pretty sticky so far this morning, so we'll see how this goes. You know, as you guys probably, if you've watched any of the videos, you know I run my stuff pretty tacky. I like this stuff, you know, even that, I mean, like I've already, there's stretch in there, right? Because I had to pull on this a little bit, so there's some stretch in there already. But, you know, with just my light finger touches, that stuff starts to tack itself in place, and I prefer that over having it slip all over the place. You know, it is definitely a different type of install, but I prefer it over using too much soap and then just have it, this is slip and slide on here. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and squeegee this out. So I'm just basically trying to get starting here in this whole area. And let's see. Actually, I think we're gonna lift this back up a little. And we'll leave it something like that. So that this area, I'll explain that when we get back to it. So let's go around this way here. I'm kind of going the opposite direction I normally go. Normally I go to the other side. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so let's get this lined up here. Okay, and we want to get this recess squeegee down. And then we just keep checking to make sure we're lining up on the top here. And then we can lay this part down. And so really when you're installing this stuff, you're kind of going from tack point to tack point, which I don't think I really talk about too much in my videos, but you know, it's important that you're paying attention to where you're going next, because you want to make sure you're lined up well to get there. Because with kits, you know, if you get too far off, you're going to run into problems where things really start not lining up or they line up incorrectly, and that can be a real headache. So at this point we can see that we are going to need some stretching to help get rid of these fingers, and that stretch is going to be over to this point, and how much stretch we need is going to be answered by when does this line up correctly here. All right, let's pull all this back here and just get a little bit more slip in there. I mixed this keg up a couple days ago, and so it might just be the stuff that's in the hose is not, we haven't gotten all the way through what was in the hose. And this stuff will lose its tack for sure, or lose its slip while it's sitting in the hose. Okay, so now we've basically got tack down to here, and we're gonna go ahead and stretch this over into place. And then what we want to be making sure is that this all starts to line up real good, and this is lining up, so we start overhanging right here, and that same overhang should go all the way to the top, and then we're looking for this stuff to start lining up really good. Now it does leave us with some fingers, so there's a couple things that we can do there. We can either just go for it and then know that we're going to have some fingers to really work with here, but because there's no stretching needed in this area, we can also just grab right here. But we're going to need to be careful because we don't want to stretch too much just in this little area, because we can make a stretch line where the material is tacked and where it isn't tacked. So let's go ahead. I pulled that up just a little bit more to make sure that we're not stretching from a hard line, basically. And then I'm going to put my hand right here and stretch away from that. And then I'm going to look for this to line up well, and that's lining up really well. I can feel here that that's lining up well, and I can see that. And now we've got a little bit more of that finger stretched out, which is going to be great for laying this down a little bit easier. Okay, and then let's push all this stuff out the top. Okay, now we're going to need to get our tack solution. Which I don't have any. Stupid. Okay, and before we mess with those too much, let's get this just laid into place and squeegeed out. So let's make sure this lines up really good here. We're pre-tacking again. I do feel like that's coming out way soapier, so that was definitely a lot of the soap has, you know, lost its slipperiness in the hose. That stuff totally happens. So usually when I mix up a new batch of soapy water, I go ahead and make sure and blow everything in the hose out. Now right here you can see that I had some stretch on it and it began to tack right there. You see how that has that shape to it? That means that I had this pulled like this, and then that started to tack, and then we let that tension go, and that's what created that. So we want to get that pop back up, because that type of thing can leave a little distortion in the adhesive. Okay, so I'm lining this up really good right here. And then we're making sure that that's lining up well. And then we're gonna go ahead and squeegee over to here. We'll take all this stuff down. And then we can go ahead and take the rest of this up and out. And there I just made an adjustment to this top here because we're hanging over the top just a little bit. And so I brought that down so we don't have to trim that. Now let's go ahead and get some tack solution in this edge. We'll go ahead and get some tack solution in that bottom. And then we'll go ahead and push all this stuff up and out. You can see I'm starting way down here and pushing all this stuff out again, and that's just to make sure that no water ran down a little bit while it was just hanging out there. So we don't want to be leaving water bubbles behind. Okay, and then we'll push out the bulk of this stuff, and then now we'll go ahead and come back and we'll do a swipe and hold on this edge. So just past the edge, and then with this part of the squeegee right here, you can see where basically that was sitting. We just do a swipe and hold on that edge. Okay, so that part is looking really good, and then we'll do one over here. So a lot of pressure, solid amount of pressure, enough that my hand's like shaking just a little bit because I'm putting some good pressure on there. Okay, now let's go ahead and work with these ones here. So plenty of tack there. We'll go ahead and squeegee those out. And then if they keep popping back up, we do a swipe and hold on that edge. And then we're gonna just keep moving along. We're not gonna worry about getting that to tuck in right now around the side. Okay, let's keep working around. So I can see here, now let's get you around here. So I can see here that when we line this up and we don't have any stretch in it at all, it's hanging over this top edge. So that's a situation where you can see that they haven't made final adjustments to this kit, because more than likely this kit will be adjusted to correct that. That's a very minor problem and something that's super easily corrected. So let's go ahead. We've got that in place now. Everything else is lining up really well. And then we'll go ahead and squeegee that top out, and then let's check out this going across here. And I would guess that that overhang will just have to stay the same. So let's go ahead and push that down. Okay, so we've got everything from about here up, push down. Now let's go ahead, I'm gonna raise this car up and then we'll get this down. Okay, let's go ahead. So when I'm looking at this now, what we want to make sure is that we've got the same overhang on both sides, because this is going to wrap around. So we want to make sure that that is wrapping around correctly and ending right at the edge. And then we want to kind of keep an eye on this to make sure we've got the hangover is the same. Although I am much more concerned about this wrapping in area than I am wrapping around here. And more than likely what we're going to be doing, coming back, cutting this edge off, and then we're going to cut off right along this edge, because this does just barely wrap around. So we might try that, but then this is definitely going to overhang. So there needs to definitely be some adjustments to this kit. But what we can see here is that we've got a couple little fingers, and this pattern has been designed to come further down because of this notch that's in it right here. So we know that that's going to end right at the corner there, and that gets rid of all the fingers nicely. Get some moisture on there, some slip. Let's check this, all this stuff out here again before we go pushing this down. So that looks like it's lining up pretty good. So let's bring this back down a little on this side, and then we'll squeegee down towards our hand. And in the computer, we did delete the cutout for around this and for around the parking sensors. That's just something we pretty much do on every install. And then when we stretch that down all the way like that, it is causing a little bit of an issue with how this works right here. So we're gonna kind of keep an eye on that. Like I said, okay, hang on. Let's go ahead and see what we're gonna do here. Because we really want the coverage here. It's very important that we get this covered correctly here in the front. And so I can see that I can wrap this around a little and get a nice protection on the front there. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up a little bit more. So that tack point isn't gonna work for us for just pulling down and right to that point. I need this to line up really well here, so I need to pay more attention to make sure that this is going into place. More so than that's going into place, because we can get this in place and then stretch over to there. Okay, so I'm gonna spray in there around my finger and try to get a little bit of tack in there, and then we're gonna go ahead and push that area down now that's got a little bit of tack in it, and we'll go ahead and roll this all the way back to this plastic here. So let's get a little bit more tack in there, because we want this to stay stuck down really good, and we don't have any tack out here. So when we do stretch to that corner, we don't want this to move, because this edge here is really important that it's lined up well. Okay, and we got, there was tack in there, and that kind of pushed down a little early on me. So let's pull that back up, because there's a little bit of air stuck underneath there. I'll get some more tack in there, and then we'll go ahead and take this at least over this first edge, and then we'll wrap all the way back to the black plastic there. Okay, so now we're certain that everything is wrapped off of this face, and now we're going to wrap this over. Okay, great. Make sure that all that is pushed down really well. We didn't leave any water in there. Let's get this part down. Sometimes in those edges you can go ahead and stick your finger in there after you push the material down. I'm popping this up because there was some more air trapped in there. I need to replace, I'm gonna get a new squeegee here. This is, my problem is the squeegee right now. The end of this squeegee has been cut off multiple times to make sure that I'm still getting nice, that this edge is really nice and smooth, so we're not leaving a bunch of streaks or water behind. And the problem with that is that now I've made this edge here way too rigid because it's so thick now, so it's not very flexible, and it's not wanting to contour into this stuff like I'm used to it doing. And so I need just to get a new squeegee. This one's done. All right, let's get this stretched down to this corner now. So right there, and then we'll tack that corner since that's where our tack solution is, and then we'll go ahead and squeegee all this stuff out. So I'll bring this down, and we'll take this stuff out this way, and I'll kind of just make sure that everything is squeegeed out towards the light as well. So I have the side marker anyway. Okay, and here we'll go ahead and push this over. See, that keeps coming up, so we're gonna need a swipe and hold there. Okay. And I'm just gonna bring, let's see, we're gonna actually leave that like that right there, and then we'll stretch this kind of into place. Okay, so this is where things are going to get a little funky. And I'm not sure. This is a great video at this point. You know, we're making something work that isn't designed for what we're doing, and so you know, that is a little bit of a headache. So you can see from the stretch, this is up too high now. So what I'm gonna do is pull down on this like that and make sure that's all laying out nice and smooth. And then I'm pushing some pressure down there on the bottom to make that stick, and then we're gonna go ahead and squeegee all of this stuff out over to here. Okay, we'll take this stuff up like this. We'll get back to this, and we don't want any of this tension to release, and we need to bring this pattern back down now, because now we've got this part too high here, and that we can't have that relief cut out in that area. So I'm going to pull down on this a little bit and then put a little bit of stretch on it, just as much as we have to have in order to get this to lay down nicely. Because you see that's not going to work, way too much of a finger, and right about there is really good. So as little as possible as far as the stretch there. I got a little aggressive there. Okay, and we need to actually come further down. I'm gonna just bring this back to here because I don't like how this is working, because we're ended up with a stretch line right here because we stretched back down, and so I'm gonna do this different now. So I'm gonna get a little bit of tack in here, and we're gonna stretch out this way, and we're gonna line this up just barely at the bottom there so that part goes over, and then we're gonna see how much stretch we need. So something like that is looking pretty good because this is all lined up really well, and then this needs to come down because of this finger here, just like that. Okay, and that's gonna work out much better. So I'm pushing some pressure down there to make sure that that stays down and doesn't pop back up down there. And then we'll go ahead and get this squeegeed out. I'm not sure exactly what, you know, I don't know how good this video is for a video for you guys to be watching, because I'm making this do something it's not designed to do. So I'm not sure where the benefit is in that, because by the time you get around to doing something like this, you should have a much better kit than this that's designed specifically for the bumper. You know, sometimes we get a hold of these cars just faster than they can get all the bumpers, all the variations into the computer. Okay, so we're just going up to the top there, swipe and hold. Okay, get everything off the face here. And now we'll go ahead and go from this body line down to the next one. So let's get some tack in there. Okay. Let's see right here. Okay, good. You're still watching. Okay, so I'm going to stretch down on this, and then we're going to go ahead and tack all this down. And you know, this is completely different than what they would have wanted. Like, they're not going to have a kit that looks like this down here, so this is not going to be like that. It does wrap under there a bit, but it needs a relief cut in a different spot. So we are going to have to put a relief cut in here and then work with that. But we will get all, you know, good coverage underneath here with these two, and then we'll put some kind of potentially cut in this. We'll see what we need to do for that to get that to work for this install. Okay, I'm gonna take this up higher now. Take the car up. All right, so we'll start back here. And all this tension just means we're gonna need some pull this way. Get some tack in there. And then let's lay this down into place, and then we can start squeegeeing this out. Okay, and then we're gonna need a little bit of stretch that way in order to get rid of some of this excess material here. It's just like that. I'll get that all squeegeed out. I'm gonna hold that down in place right there in that corner because it keeps wanting to pop up. So let's get a little bit more tack in here now. And just do a swipe and hold on that edge, and that should keep that down now. Make sure all that's out. Okay, let's move on to this part now. Again, tack solution. You see all the tension on it that we have there, and we're gonna need to put some tension on this part here to get it to lay down into place. So right like that. Makes that lay down nice and evenly. Making sure that we've got this edge pushed out really well, and then we'll go ahead and start tacking down below that, underneath there. Now we're gonna stop right there. More tack. Let's get this stretched into place now. And work our way over to our finger. Okay, that looks good. And then let's see what we can do here. So chances are it's going to be way too much stretch to put into that. That's a ridiculous amount in order to get this to go down. So what I'm going to do here, I think in this situation, because none of this is fitting very well, and this definitely is not going to lay in here. Well, it kind of does, doesn't it? Okay, and that just means getting rid of this right here. So what we're going to do is start right here. Nope, we need a new blade. Not biting. Just gliding across the material. And that'll tell you that the blade is definitely too dull. Okay, so we're going to start right here, really where the point is on the finger, maybe just a little bit further back this way. And then we can bring this across just like that. And now I want to cut all the way through, so to give us a good spot to tear from. Okay, perfect. Now, because we did that, we eliminated all this stretch that was going to need to be in that. So before we lay this part down, we want to get this part laid down really well. Okay, perfect. I just put some pressure on that edge right there with my finger to make sure that that was pretty stuck down. And then we're going to go ahead and stretch back from there. So something like that looks good. Okay, and then I'm going to put some stretch to get rid of, there's some extra material here, so if you just try to lay that down, it's not going to go down. So I'm going to put just a little bit of stretch out this way and back this way a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and lay that down. Okay, so these are overlapping now, and we're just going to come back and trim that off right there. But we'll worry about that later. All right, so for these fingers here, I'm gonna go ahead and just put some tack in there. And then while it's up in the air so high, we can see this really good under here. I'm just gonna go ahead and roll the areas where the film was coming up. Oh, I trapped a little water in there. I really need to replace the squeegee. I'm gonna just do that. I'm gonna take a quick second and grab myself a new squeegee so that I can quit having issues with this one. Okay, so that's all wrapped down really well. That's good. Thank you. All right, so I went ahead and pulled this loose here and got some more solution underneath it because we had a bunch of pre-tacking because I had the old soapy water in the hose and it was just extra sticky. So what we want to do now is, before we start doing any stretching here, we need to get a soft line to stretch from, because all of this line here, that's a hard line because this is really dry and cured. And so we want to come over with this about at least a ½ an inch to an inch. Okay, and I'm actually just going to go to about here instead, because this is all lined up really good and is laying down very nicely, so there's no stretch necessary there. The stretch really is all in this corner. But before we do anything here, like any adjustments, I just want to make sure that's lining up pretty well. And then we want to get this tacked down into place, because any adjustments or stretch that we put here is going to make this want to just pop up super easy. So let's get that down first. And then I got to push this down here. What are you doing there? There we go. Okay. Just double checking there, make sure I got everything pushed down well. Let's get this laid back down into place here, and then go ahead and squeegee this out. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get some tack in this stuff so that we can convince this to stay down. I think I'm basically going to come all the way over to this cutout here, or the opening for the tow hook cover. Okay, so let's get this squeeged out. There we go. Just had to get the correct angle on that. It didn't want to go down and it kept leaving water. I wasn't getting the correct squeegee across there. Okay, so we're all the way to there. We're all the way to there. Let's get over there with this part here. Oh man, I didn't get this lined up real good. You really have to pay attention and make sure things are lined up ahead of where you are. Otherwise, you know, you just run into a problem where then you're further off and you're further off. So I'm gonna get that lined up real good. And now we'll go ahead and squeegee this out. This must be my first time installing a kit, you know. I'm brand new at this. Okay, got some tack in there now, so we can convince all this stuff to really stay down. Let's make sure that this body line has everything squeegeed out of it. Okay, so now we're all the way to here. Let's get this pulled back up a little, make sure we're not, we are pre-tacking a little bit, so let's get that pulled back, get some more soap in there. Okay, and then right from this point here, we're gonna wanna go ahead and get a little stretch in there and then stretch until this lines up really well. So right there looks good. Now let's make sure with our hand up and down that we're lined up correctly right there, which looks really good. And then we'll go ahead and squeegee out to our hand. And then we'll take this up over that edge and then all the way up to the grill. Okay, now what I want to do here is let this break loose just a little bit. Let's check this spot again. So I'm going to reach over here, pull to that line, and then I'm going to line this top up really well. I'm going to take a look here. Everything is looking like it's lined up really well, so let's come and squeegee out all the way to our hand. Okay, bring this all the way over. Very nice. Now let's get this stuff down. So we're going to spray some tack in here, and we may have to add some more tack once we get all of the soapy water pushed out. Because right in there was still some soap in there. Okay, let's get this stuff pushed up and out. So sometimes if there's water, still the soapy water is still stuck in there when you spray in your tack, obviously that dilutes it a bit. And so sometimes like that, then you'll get all that stuff out and then you have to come back with another spray of the tack solution. So now we're just tack solution. And then that should help that stay down now. Okay, that looks really good. If you continue, like there's a spot popping up right here, and I think I kind of created that when I pushed this other stuff out, that popped up. So we didn't have fresh tack in there, and now we do, and that's staying down really well. Let's take care of the bottom of this. I'm gonna spray just some fresh tack in there. Now, because these are hanging down, all of the soapy water would have just, you know, kind of ran out of here fairly easily. So we can assume that we probably have a lot more tack in here and it's not really diluted like it was on the top part. Let's go ahead, get the bulk of that out, and then we'll swipe and hold like this on that edge. So this pattern needs to be adjusted to have it go down just a little bit further here. I mean, we've got some great coverage, but it could, in this area, go down just a little bit. And I'm sure when they come in and readjust everything, and this isn't the first generation of this pattern, that will be all corrected. Okay, let's get this all lined up really good here. And let's kind of just stretch this down into place to get this corner here to line up well, because obviously we leave it just like that. This starts to go out like that. And so we can bring that down a little to correct that problem. And then we're rolling over really good there for placement. Okay, let's squeegee all this out. Like that. And then let's get some tack in this edge, and we're going to do the thing where we wrap this over now because it's got tack in there. And then when we stretch to that bottom corner again, it'll make sure that this stays stuck in place. Okay. All right. Okay, let's get a little more tack in there. You want to just bring it around?
Back here. I just
Oh.
want to open the door while you're in the middle of your video.
Oh no, that's fine.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, now you can see that we're off a bit here. We're not back far enough this way, and so we're gonna make some, we're gonna do some stretch here and get this corner lined up a little better. So right there looks really good. And I'll hold that in place with my finger, and then we'll go ahead and squeegee this stuff out. Like this. Okay. Now this isn't good right here. We don't want to leave that, how this is popping up right there. We need to get that taken care of. We don't want to let that sit like that, because it will end up leaving a distortion right there along that edge if it sits there like this for too long. So let's go ahead and trim a little bit right here, right at that edge. Okay, and then hopefully I can get my fingernail in there, in that crevice there, and get that push in far enough that it'll kind of break this apart. Not working so far. There we go. Okay, I found a spot that works. Let's go ahead and just get some slip in there. This is pretty stuck to this side marker here. Okay, we'll get this pulled back. Let's tear this all the way down as far as we cut. Let's sneak some tack in there. And then we can go ahead now and push this down. And so everything else there looks fine. We can let the rest of that sit while we move on here. All right, let's keep moving along here. We don't want to let this sit for too long, otherwise this is going to be a hard line to stretch from, and we don't want that. Okay, as we can see here, this really needs to turn back up, and that's going to mean quite a bit of stretching. So let's see what we can do here. So it's going to need to come up right there, and so we got to stretch all that out of there. And then over here, let's make sure that we're lined up correctly for that relief cut to be on the very bottom of the bumper. And then right here, we'll just make sure that this lines up, is right with the edge. The further up we go, the bigger it makes this finger, and we don't need that. So we just want to get that right there with the edge. Okay. So I held this in place long enough really that it kind of started to hold into place. And that's helpful. So we're going to go ahead and lay this down on this end. I got some tack solution in there. So let's get this to lay down like that. Okay. Now let's get this part into place. Get a little tack in there. Oop, oop, oop. That's a lot of tack apparently. So right there, we know we want it to stay right there. And then this part here, we're going to want to put a little bit of stretch down on this to help get rid of some of this finger here. So that looks good right there. And we'll go ahead and squeegee away from that line there. And then we will stop like right there. And we can even fold this under a little like that, so that stays into place. And then now we need to bring this part this way and then this part this way. And then we can take this stuff up. It's really moving around here, so let's get some more tack in there, or some tack in there. Let's let that come out the bottom, some of the excess there. Just rechecking this edge here, making sure that we're below this part that anybody's going to see, and that the relief cut is on the bottom basically. So let's go ahead and push that like that. Let's take this stuff towards the middle, and then we'll push everything up and out. So because we're tacked here and we're tacked here, we can't just push out to the side, one of the sides, or we're going to have issues. We're going to be pushing the film or the excess solution in here through an area that's already tacked down, and then that's going to leave distortions in the adhesive. Okay, now we've got this down. This bottom part we're not so worried about, and so we want to make sure that we're working on the parts that are more crucial right away. So it's more important that we get this stuff all down because it's visible. It's out in the open, and the underneath, you know, it's not so important. So that's how you want to work on things. You want to make sure you're getting the more important areas down first, and then coming back and taking care of the other areas. Okay, I left something right there. I'm bringing that back up right to this body line here. That way we don't get any type of distortion in the adhesive. Not that you'd even be able to see this anyway, but that's just a good practice to get into, is pulling back to body lines when you lift stuff up. Okay, so this is going over that edge. And we kind of broke that finger up there a little bit. It's hanging over the edge a little bit. That's why it just continually keeps popping up and doesn't want to stay down. We're gonna have to put a trim on that in order to get that to stay down. We'll try a swipe and hold, see if that works. Although I'm guessing that's still eventually here with a little bit of time, it's gonna pop back up. Okay, double checking all this here. Make sure we got everything squeegeed out. And then I'm gonna lift this up and we'll go ahead and take care of this bottom. All right, let's get under here. And we'll kind of work the same way we did last time, which is kind of from this back area, and then work our way around to the front there. All right, so again, we've got all this extra stretch because of all the funky kind of stuff that we did here. So we need to get this to lay down, and basically it's just pulling again towards these corners, away from the center there, making sure right now that everything's off the face there. And then we'll go ahead and work back towards this corner. This corner is overhanging a little bit, so that is going to just continually pop up. Okay, got a little bit kinked over right here. I'm being, you know, I don't know, what do you want to call it? I'm being like, how do I want to say that? So I wasn't being real careful basically, because this is underneath. Normally I wouldn't want to kink up the film so much like that, but it's really not a big deal when it's underneath here. Nobody's ever gonna see it, and it didn't do a mark anyway. But if it was gonna leave a mark, sometimes, you know, I get a little less careful in areas like this. Okay, let's get this pulled back all the way up here. Okay, that looks good. Plenty of tack in there now. Go ahead and stretch that way and back this way. And then we can push all this down towards our finger, and then you could even let this end pop up like that and then push that down with no tension on it, because I was holding that when I stretched. And the nice thing about that now is you don't have to worry about that popping up, because all the stretch is all in this area up to there where we lifted it up to, and then there's no stretch on that edge. And you see this one, how this just keeps, well, it is hanging over the edge too. That's kind of the problem with that one. But you know, the more, like, there's no need for stretch right there. So adding that stretch to it is just gonna give it the possibility of breaking loose like this one and popping back up. Okay, let's get everything off the face there. Okay, and then that one really, it's not really much of a stretch there, more than it is just kind of positioning it and laying it down. I mean, we only want to put stretch on it if we need to. Okay, let's start over here with this one, and we'll bring this down, and it does need a little bit of stretch, something like that. So one kind of thing that I could have done a little bit better with is getting this all the way to there, like I did on this side. We're actually overhanging a bit there. So these are gonna have to match, and lifting all that back up isn't gonna be the option. I think what I'm gonna be doing is going straight with this black plastic here, and I'll put my seam right there, bring this together, and then take it over the other direction, is how that's gonna end up working now. that I didn't get this over far enough. Okay, let's get a cut on this here. Here at the end, I'll go through and nope, I didn't get enough. We get a new blade. Okay, try this again. That doesn't feel real good either, actually. Okay, but it is good. Great. All right, so first things first again, we're gonna get this portion pushed down so that we can lay this next piece over the top of it. Okay, we've got tack underneath all that now, so I'm gonna go ahead and put, so if we just try to lay this down, we can see we've got extra material here. So this is going to need to be pulled on just a little bit, put a little tension on there. And then we can go ahead and squeegee this stuff out towards our finger. And it was putting those marks, you know, those lines in it this way, and that's why I went ahead and lifted that up and pushed that down the way I did right there, so that we weren't, those bubbles weren't going to leave real easily without probably potentially folding over on themselves, because it was just tack solution in there. So let's get this to lay down and push this down. Okay, there we go. Okay, and all this looks plenty good just to leave like that. Let's get back up here and deal with some of this stuff in here now. All right, so I'm going to try just pushing this down without any moisture, tack solution or slip, and see if we can kind of get that to stay down, because that is going to be tough to trim with it popping up like that. I mean, we're going to do it either way, it'd just be better if it was stuck down. Let's push this guy back out. Okay, I'm going to hold that down for a moment, some good pressure with my finger. Let's get our blade out, and we know that we can go all the way to here, and this is, we're going to be on the paint protection film, and then right up in here is where we start it starts being paint again, way up in there. So when we're cutting, we're going to stop right in there so that we don't obviously get the paint. But it's good to know where you're starting and where you're stopping before you get started. Okay, so and we're right here on the face, right here, and then it starts to roll over right there. So I'm going to come just a little bit further back right there, and we're going to go ahead and start trimming this off. Okay. Now I'm going to stick my fingernail on this edge and push back like that, and what I'm hoping is that I can get this stuff to tear right in the edge where I'm sticking my fingernail in there. This stuff is, situations like this, it's pretty tough to get this to tear away, because you got to get it to break loose. And you can't grab onto the material to like yank on it, so it does, this type of areas gets a little bit more difficult. Let's see what happens if we get some of this here. Just starts kind of pulling the material up. Let's try holding that down. I really can't get, I was gonna try pulling up on this and holding that down at the same time and hopefully get it to tear, but that line isn't gonna work. See, maybe if I can get that to break loose, by kind of bunching it up a little. It looks like it might have. Yep, okay, that's good. Those are tough to get started. It's really hard to get stuff started like that. Okay, and then that's going up underneath there just a little bit. We didn't quite make it all the way to the end there, and we're gonna try to make that work. Let's pull this one, just take it nice and slow. There we go. Okay. Let's get this part now. So some tack solution in there really made the difference. So just trying to push that down didn't do anywhere near that good, right? So that's gonna work much better that way. So let's figure out where we're on the edge here. So right about there. And then we'll let's make sure it doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't turn back this way at all. Nope, okay. So we'll be able to go from right here. I can see that edge really, just a tiny bit on the very edge. So we know where to start. And as we come around this corner, it starts to come and not hang over so much. So right there. Okay, perfect. I think it actually started to tear a little. But then with my fingernail, I made it tuck way back in there. Okay, so let's see if we can get that out of there, or am I gonna have to get tweezers for this? Tweezers it is. I mean, really, if I just get the whole bumper done and maybe some mirrors in good shape for today. Here we go. Much better. Okay, and then we'll try this out. Let's go ahead and get this corner here to push down. Actually, I don't know that it matters so much. The body kind of turns like right here. And so I think that is gonna be the best spot for a seam, is gonna be right there. So we don't even need that to be stuck down, but let's do lift it. This is gonna be in the way if we're trying to cut right there. With the blade, it's gonna wanna bump into that. So let's get a little bit of tension on this and lift it up like that so it's nice and open where we're gonna be trimming. Okay, so again, I want to figure out where this edge goes to. And it's like right, it really goes tucking back up in there pretty quickly. So right here. Get a little squeak out of that. Okay. And then once we get to here, so really it's kind of more like down this body line and then out. Okay. So let's see what we can do here. So this, most of this is gonna get, okay. So let's see, what can we do here? Okay, well let's worry about, so let's just pull this off. It's this other part I'm worried about now, like where are we gonna trim that off to? But let's deal with that in a moment. And let's get this part pulled back up here, and I'm gonna hold this part in place while I pull this part up, and hopefully we get it to tear. Great. Let's go ahead and fully take that off. Okay.
Bye, see you.
Okay, see ya. Okay. I like that. All right, let's lay this back down now over that edge. And then we're gonna go right here below, just below the edge, and trim this off. Okay. There we go. That way when we do this piece, it just is going to be covering the top here. We're not going to have to worry about bringing that around to the bottom. But I am... So when I was way down here looking up at this, the edge is different than when I'm standing up here looking at it because it's rounded. So I need to bring this down a little bit further. So from right here, I'll come across right there. See if we can get that to tear right there. There we go. All right, there we go. Now it's right on that line. Much better. Okay, so I'm gonna take care of this part first here and trim this. Now we can lower the vehicle back down. And we're not gonna have to worry about getting back to this part here. Okay, yep, let's bring this down. And actually, while this is still up, I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I wanna take care of this while this is still up in the air. So let's get a bunch of tack in here. Okay, and then I'm going to use this red squeegee because it contours really well. Well, that's not, let's see how this does. Okay, actually that went down really good. I must not have had good pressure on it the first time. I was like, wow, that's not sticking very fast, but it actually is sticking quite well. Okay, so we're just doing a slide chomp here. And I would imagine that we're going to need more than that. Yep, in some of the area we do. Okay. That was a lot to slide chomp at once. So I would imagine that not all of it would stick right down for us. Okay, let's go ahead and dry that out now. So that can begin to cure and we don't have to worry about water in that edge, helping that to pop back up. Okay, so it looks like that goes up in there a little ways. So this whole piece is going to be able to be cut really from all the way from there all the way over to here. So that is a long way to cut with my left hand. And the right hand will work great. So, but let's see, I really want to cut this part with my left hand and get that to turn and come down correctly. Right about like that. Because, you know, obviously that's not gonna work. So let's start right about here. You're gonna need to be ambidextrous with your blade here. So practice that. Okay, and then we're gonna turn. We're going to come down to this point here, and when we get to that point we'll kind of go straight up and down, and right there. It would have been nice to bring them both over to here, kind of like this is going to hide, I think, a lot better than this one, but you know, but yeah, I don't know, either way it doesn't really matter, I guess. Keep an eye on that, make sure it stays on your cut line. Okay, and we'll just be gentle with the pull here because we know at some point we're gonna run into like right there where it isn't cut anymore. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and take over coming from this direction. I want one more blade out there. So what do I have out there right now? 4. And I know I mentioned this quite a few times, but just remember when you're cutting paint protection film, you don't always have to be making a squeak. And if you are making a squeak, you want to be on the lighter side of the squeak, because the more heavy pressure side of the squeak is cutting through into the paint. So just know that. I know that us in the industry talk about that squeak a lot, and it is a great sound and it is important, but you want to be on the lighter side of it. And so sometimes you don't get a squeak because you're not pushing hard enough, and that doesn't mean you want to add more pressure necessarily. So just know that. All right, and this one is not hanging over, so we're looking really good there, so we don't have to worry about that. Let me try this edge out. Okay, it's popping up just a tiny bit here, and I'm drying the edge out, and then we're going to leave that, and then we'll come back through and just randomly I'll be pushing stuff like that down. Okay, right here is coming up a little bit, so I'm gonna put the towel in there and I'm gonna glide across this, kind of push that edge down a little. Okay, that looks good. And you'll notice over here that ever since we cut that off, that little finger that kept popping up is not coming back. All right, you can see that in the camera there, that we've got this edge not stuck down. So let's get some tack in there and let's go ahead and roll this edge over. I'm chomping that down, and we'll take that all the way over on the back side now, or on the side, all the way down. There we go. Nice finished edge there. And we will give that one more push down with the heat sealing process. Okay, and now something you might notice on the other side is that this lined up a bit better on the other side. So this could have been a stretch issue, although we did end up with an overhang here on the other side, so it's kind of hard to say what the problem was. Let's go ahead and roll this around now that it's been sitting here for a while. It's pretty dry, and we can go ahead and roll this around like that, and then let's check it. Yeah, it's still hanging off by about that much, so we're gonna need to trim all the way across here and then all the way down to the bottom here. So let's start up here. So up here we'll be right on the face. A good squeak. I'm gonna go ahead now, pause right there, lift this film back up a little, and then we'll go all the way through once we're off the bumper, like so. That gives us a great spot to tear from. Beauty. Okay, and then I'll put a little light in here, see if that is helpful at all. And let's get you a little bit over more, maybe. I did not put my tire, I don't know how well that's going to show up in the camera there, but let's see what we can do. So we are, like I said, hanging off. We're going to come up here. We're just going to go down this part here. Just basically at the edge, we're right before the bumper ends. Double check. Okay, we're getting to the point now. So let's hold that right there while we check the rest of this. Okay, it's still hanging off, but it did come in, and we wanted to make sure we didn't come off of the paint protection film and hit the paint. So we're always double checking to make sure you still have that overhang. You need to trim it off. Okay, get that little pull there. Okay, there we go. I didn't put my tire covers on today. I'm not sure why. Oh, it is hanging over there still. I was mistaken. I thought that lined up a bit better than it does. It lined up better than the other side, but still definitely hanging over. All right, let's get this back up, take care of this bottom part here underneath. All right, so this is all looking really good. We're not overhanging until we get to, there's a little bit here. So let's take care of this. So from about, this is awkward. Okay, there we go. So from there to there. Okay. And then back here now. So I'll just push this down with my finger. And then we'll start like right here. Came off. I went over that rounded edge and came off my line there. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. What else do we need to do here? We're ready to get this middle piece in. I guess I've got to go over and cut the other stuff. Okay, so okay, so from this whole edge is hanging over, so let's get this part pushed down. And then we can start right about here. I know I'm doing that kind of weird, but normally it's best just to get that stuck down, but I don't want to, it's just going to keep popping back up. So I thought I'd just make this easier on myself. Okay, here we go. This is hanging over just the tiniest bit right here. So let's go from right here and make a turn. Cut that whole edge off. Okay. We're hanging over here a little bit. A little bit further right there. I'm pushing this bottom up so I can get my pinch the edge of the material. There we go. You know, okay, now that I'm down here, I can see right here that if you were to bring this pattern all the way down, and instead that little edge that was cut out right here, the corner, maybe it wasn't trying to line up there, it was trying to line up here. So you see that? Hopefully you can see that in the camera real well. So maybe more forward and down would have put that right where we needed to be, underneath basically. So instead of putting it here, we put it there, and then all this stuff on the back would have lined up well, and that would have let less stretch down this way from here. So note that, huh? It's a guess, just guessing on the first try. I mean, we got great coverage, so it's not a problem, but that, now that I see that, that makes sense. And that'd be why it's hanging over so much back here. All right, so I'm just wrapping this around. Oops. Ugh. And I'll trim that later. All right, let's go ahead and cut around this. So there's a little bit popping up right here. I'm gonna go ahead and push that down with my finger. So we're all nice and sealed down around this. And then just note here, on this car, Well, let's take care of this part first, and then I'll get around to this other part and explain to you. I'm not going to cut these out. I'm just going to try and push them down and leave this uncut. And I'll show you why I'm going to do that on one of the front parking sensors. So let's start right here. Work our way down this edge. Okay, down to the bottom, wrap around and go back up. And I'll go ahead and stop right about there. And then I'll come up to here, kind of overlap just a tiny bit on our cut line. Come up around this one. Okay, and back down. Great. Let's see now. So kind of by stuffing my fingernail in there and pulling, I was able to get that to break apart. So that's going to be a good spot for starting here. And it's really hard to grab a hold of because it's really stuck to this marker. So I'm going to get that very edge and then kind of pull that back a bit. Okay, we can work our way up. Okay, just be very careful here because if this shoots off the wrong way, obviously it'll tear into the pattern, and we don't want that. We want it to, if it does catch an edge, we want it to tear this way and not over that way, and the opposite obviously with that side. I'm gonna start pinching this as they come closer together. There's no good way to really hold that and peel both of those at the same time, so the pinch works really good because then again you're pulling in towards the part that you're fine with it tearing into if something goes wrong. Okay, let's go ahead and with a little bit of moisture that's on, nope, not enough. So I'm just gonna throw some tack in here because that's what I have on me. And then we'll go ahead and push that down. And really, more than anything, I just needed some slip on there so that the squeegee would glide across the material. So, all right. So what I'm gonna do with these is I'm gonna come back in the morning and I'm gonna push these down and hope that they dried out and then they stick down really well. And then you see how this one is so many so it's, you know, the middle circle, another circle, and then the bumper. And what I think is that when that dries, I'm gonna be able to do that with it and get it to stay down and look good. Now if it doesn't work, we will just come and cut right on the outside here and peel that center section out. I do this from time to time with parking sensors and leave them covered. Now, there really is no downside to that, other than sometimes it might not work well. So most of the time I trim them, but we're not going to be doing that on this one because I'm not going to trim this line, that line, that line, and then that line. What I'm going to end up doing is just not covering that middle, this whole middle section just isn't going to get any coverage on it. So if I can leave it like this, it's worth a shot. Because once that dries out and we just push that down, it might look fantastic. And that will give them some coverage over that parking sensor that they're not otherwise going to get. And I've never had an issue with parking sensors with covering them. So no problems that I've ever heard of. So it doesn't cause the parking sensor to malfunction or anything or sense things differently. It works just as normal. So that one looks really good already. That's what it's basically going to look like when those other two are done drying. All right, let's try and see if this one's plenty dry enough to just go ahead and wrap it now and not put tack solution in there. So we got that to wrap a little bit, and the finger is really great for this part because you want to get everything off of that corner. And what we're going to go to now is this tool here. So I don't believe that this would be so good at the corner as my finger is. So I get that part down, and then now we're gonna use this to get back further back in there where I can't get my finger. So each tool has its purpose on this part of the install. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, cut around this one now. And we need to pull this back up a bit. Actually, this is really in my face at the moment. I'm gonna use that for inside the wheel well again. Let's see, let's pull this back to where we stopped. So right there, and then right there, okay. So we'll start right there. And I'm trying to just ride that very edge. Checked again to make sure where I was going to be finishing up here, right there. Let's see, they didn't bring them right together very well, but let's see. Oh no, I'm not even going to mess with that. I missed it both times. I tried to tear on that, but I didn't even get a good pinch on the material because it kind of restuck itself down. So let's start down here, which didn't go good either. Okay. Let's see, how do we want to do this now? So I am going to try to make this one work up here. There we go. There we go. Okay, that tore just fine from that side. So let's come down around the bottom. Oh, well, I'll be damned. Okay. All right, let's recut from here over to there. So I'm gonna start right here. Across again. Okay. Now there was a tiny little edge that was already ready to tear from right on that one. So let me grab tweezers. There you can see that already pulled up to there. Around that edge and back up. Okay, there we have it. All right, and like I said earlier, I thought that we got this lined up better, and we did, just a smidgen, but it's not really. So I was kind of wrong on that. You know, we've cut this with this blade a few times. Let's go ahead and get a new edge on that. Get in there. Okay. Okay, around this corner, take it real gentle there. It's hard to go around those turns like this and stay on the paint protection film really well. Just doesn't, it's not easy to do. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and bring this on down. Just double checking here. Yeah, way down here. So you have to be careful that because we're not hanging over down there for part of that. Okay, right there about lines back up with it not hanging over the edge. Okay. Now let's see where we can need to pick this back up. So right about there. like kind of like a 45 on the edge there, and then I kind of slipped off. Okay, there we go. And you can see, I don't know if you noticed that or if you can see that little mark there. I basically didn't even cut all the way to this piece, you know, where it's, I just stopped at some point, and then we're just gonna tear that and break it apart right there so that I don't accidentally get, you know, a real thin line going there and then hit the paint when we get to there. So I stopped short of that, and then we just pull that off. Okay, so there is nothing for this section. I mean, there is, but it's like not even close to something that we could even use the piece into this. So I mean, it is already cut out, but it's garbage because it really doesn't fit at all on here. They just went ahead and cut it out for me since they had the space, and it's not even something like this where we could actually use it, even though it doesn't really fit there. It's way off. So let's get a measurement of this from left to right, and then we'll also get a height there, which is, you know, just a couple inches. I guess we'll need a tape measure for this. You know, you'd think I'd think ahead on this. Like, I know what I'm doing here. I know that we're gonna be doing this part and we're gonna need to measure it. You think before I turn the camera on, I'd go grab a tape measure? No. All right, so from there over to here, we've got 43. So 48-inch roll is gonna work great for that. And then we'll just cut off the end of the roll, something like, you know, just give ourselves a good 4 inches, and that's gonna be a ton of extra. So that'll work real well. All right, let's go ahead and get this piece onto the car. Let's see, one of these ends was pretty straight. So let's try going with this one, although there is some tunneling in this roll. So this whole section at the end here is going to be useless. Let's see how that fits. Not great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just take this up a little. I'm just using some scraps off of a roll that's at the very end, and there's a little bit of tunneling in it, which just in certain areas. Can you see that now? And so that is always going to look like that. Even if you put it on the car, it's going to have lines there that are never going to go away. So that's unusable section. So keeping that extra end of the roll is great for little pieces like this, because you can move stuff around and get something to work in here. Now let's go ahead and get a little tack on here. And then we need some slip on top. And let's go ahead and get this pulled back out to where it was, like that. And look how nice that lays down. And then let's see this. Oh yeah, and that needs a little bit of stretch, which is perfect. That looks really good. Okay, this is gonna be pretty straightforward then. I was gonna try and use this top edge here because it's more straight along here, but actually that looks way, like it functions, it lays in there much better, but it lays in there a lot better. The only other thing that we're gonna run into here is that when you overlap like this and then you cut this seam, it's worser than if you were to bump them together. And so we're going to do something about that right now, because that's not how I wanna do this. It's really hard to overlay these two and then cut down that seam and then have those butt up really, really well. It's like impossible, really. And so what we want to do then to make it so that we're bumping those two together is lay this down into place. We'll go ahead and squeegee this out right on this edge here. Just make sure that none of that's going to move. So we want that pretty good and tacked down. And now what we're going to do is cut right on that edge. So just like that. And it's really hard to tell. This paint color is great for hiding paint protection film. Which also means really great for hiding my line I need to cut on. Let's see if a little bit more light in here at a certain angle. Sometimes, oh, there it is. Boom, you see that thing light up? like a Christmas tree. Okay, so let's start right there, and we'll just come down this line. And don't get me wrong, that would be really probably like fine for your edge, but if you want a better edge, this would be way more important in another area. This isn't such a big deal because it's really low and people aren't really going to care, but I would like a better edge than that, and I prefer to show you guys how to do this than just do it the other way and have it be not quite as good. So what we've done now is cut that edge, and now we're going to lay this down and bump them into each other. And this way we get a really tight seam. So we're basically seaming this just like we would if this was a kit. Okay, it's a little too slippery in there, so let's go ahead. There's a joke in there somewhere. Okay, this is, it's like, now it's not slipping very well. Okay, overlapping there a little, so I'm lifting that back up. Okay, getting a really nice seam there now. And let's go ahead in between my two fingers, push that down, go all the way up, all the way down. Okay, I'm gonna throw some more tack right in here and see if we can get this edge to kind of stay down right now. Okay, and we're gonna lift this up a little, get some tack in here, and we'll just kind of work away from this after I get this lined up a little bit here more front. So right there, and then like I said, we'll work away from this area so we don't have to worry about it moving around. So we've got some good tack like all the way to here, and then we'll go ahead now and stretch away from here. And there's not really going to be much for stretching either, so it's not like we're going to be doing anything crazy here. But now we can move this around and we don't have to worry about it trying to break loose our nice tight seam. Okay, let's lift this back up, and I'm just going to put some tack in here now, like so, and then we'll come over to about like here, and then we'll cut this edge. We'll stretch this out a little extra, and it really doesn't need any stretching. So let's just go ahead and do this. So sorry, I keep changing how I want to do this. It's like, you know, I'm coming up with this stuff kind of on the fly, and I'm making decisions. And what I'd like to do is put a little stretch in this whole thing here, and then we'll go ahead and tack this part down. We'll do the same cut here, and then we'll push this seam together, and then we'll squeegee out all the rest of it just as if this was a kit. Okay, there we go. I can see that line really good again here. Dang, where was that? I popped off. There it is right there. I can see the line or the scratch in the material from the knife. Go ahead and cut all the way through. And nope, I must not have been on the line. Okay, let's see what we can do by lifting this up. Just getting that to tear. There we go. Okay. I'll take that up and tear that off. I mean, really, that's a pretty darn good seam. So you could totally live with that as a seam. That would be just fine. But let's show you this, you know, let's just keep doing it this other way. Now you can see there's a gap there, and we need to stretch that into place. So that might have been a little bit too much stretch because it's really not necessary. So I definitely could have, you know, maybe done a 1/4 inch instead of the whole 1/2 inch, but it's fine. All right, let's get, I'm gonna start with just slip and we'll see how this goes. Okay, so go ahead, bump this into each other. Okay, and with just a little bit of time there with my fingers on it, it went ahead and stuck down. So we're coming down on the line there, and then we're going around this edge. Okay, so right there. And that, you know, being able to push this down and then kind of have it stay in place like that is really just a product of not using so much soap in my slip. You know, there's definitely times where this, you know, this process with less slip could be a little bit more challenging, but then in areas like that, it's very beneficial. I think definitely overall, I find it beneficial. All right, so now we can go ahead, get a bunch of tack in here. Ooh, getting real close to that edge. Don't pop it up, we already put all the work in. Okay, and then we can pull everything away from there. Let's get a mist on here, and then let's go ahead and squeegee this out. So I'm gonna start there, go towards the middle, and then I'll start over here, go towards the middle. And then when we get to the middle there, make sure you didn't push too hard on the material and create a big old finger here, you know, because you could push really hard on the material and then stretch it. That's definitely not what we're definitely not trying to do that, because then you're gonna end up with a finger in the middle. Okay, just making sure that everything is off the face here. Okay, now that back edge looks really good, so we're right ready to go there. And let's go ahead then and let's get a bunch more tack in here. Get everything good and flushed out. And we're gonna go ahead and chomp this all down right here. Let's see, I'm gonna use this red one. We'll see if I continue with this or if I want to switch back at some point to the black one. It's a little bit more rigid, the black one, so. Oops. Okay. So I'm just kind of messing around in here, trying to push some of this stuff up, get it all good and tacked down while I'm kind of trying to hold that spot down in place. Let's go ahead, you know, here's this, okay, it's a little too flimsy for this, so I'm gonna go back to the other one. Okay, then we'll go ahead and kind of do a slide chump on this, and not kind of, we're just doing kind of do a slide chump. Okay, I'll stop there now, and we'll work from here over. Okay, just making sure I've got everything off the edge really well. It's very easy to leave stuff on these corners like this. Can't feel any bumps or anything. I can see one right there, so just need to be pushed the rest of the way down and out. Okay, now let's go ahead and trim all this. And I'm just gonna go ahead, we're getting just to the ragged edge of this end of this blade. I'm just gonna go grab a new blade. Okay, so coming over from, let's see, right about here, come across, and then nope, I'm not gonna do a little 45 at that end. I was gonna try and do a little 45, but I reached the end of the material too quickly. Okay.
I didn't understand that.
Well, that's because I wasn't talking to you. Jeez, phone. Okay, so right there, let's get less blades. That was like 6. I don't know why I had so many out there. Okay, we'll start right there. We'll come across. So sometimes when it's hard to see where I'm going, I'll lift the blade up and just double check everything like this. Make sure I'm following where I want to be. And I don't think, I mean, it was just splitting hairs here, but I do like the idea of a little bit of a 45 at that very edge or very corner, so that you're not coming to a super fine point. And I didn't get enough pressure on that right there, so it didn't want to tear before it wanted to pop up. So let's see if it'll tear. Nope. Okay, we're gonna start on the other side since we already have a cut there. That's a good place to tear from. Keep an eye on that, make sure it's going down your cut line. And right off the edge, there it is. Let's get some tack in this edge. Let's get some more pressure though. Okay, so we're gonna get this part down first. And I came across this way to make sure and bump those edges up to each other really good. We'll get this top edge all the way pushed down, all the way across. Okay. I'm gonna go grab a chair to sit in. All right. Oh, this is great height right here for working on. Okay, let's come across the face here and just work our way all the way across. I'm kind of moving too quickly for a squeak, so even if I was getting it, I'm moving pretty fast. Take your time though. No, you know, you want to get the quality cut, and then with time comes speed. Okay. Try this edge out. Okay, I'll just sit and dry, and then we'll heat seal all those edges. I mean, it'll end up being tomorrow for me, because now it's time to work right in here and see about us bulking one of these together. I may or may not put that in this video. We'll see. Shh. Listen. Oh, some of my favorite time at the shop is before we open, I'm here by myself, or after we close and I'm here by myself. Sometimes I won't even turn the radio on or anything. And it's like just working in silence sometimes is so nice. Anyway, I'm in a little early this morning, and just a little bit, and we're gonna go ahead and get started back on this vehicle. For you, it's been a split second. For me, it's been overnight, and it's time to heat seal these edges on this bumper. So there'll be some heat sealing, there'll be some trimming, and there'll be some sticking down, and I don't think there's any like tucking or really all that much wrapping left on this one to do, because we pretty much already wrapped into here. And I think that's really the only, pretty much like the wrapping part on this, other than these edges here, and we already did that yesterday as well. So, but let's go ahead and get on this part. So I've said this a bazillion times, I'm just gonna say it again. When I leave for the day, and then I show back up the next morning, I'm going to heat seal and finish everything that we did the day before I start anything else. These edges are all nice and dry, and so they're ready to be heated up and stuck down now before we start introducing the water and any more contamination from doing the rest of the panels. So that's the time to get this done so that these parts are completely done, and then we move on to our next stuff. Let's get going. All right, so let me turn on all my extra lights. All right, so I'm gonna plug in all my extra lights, and let's see the difference in the camera. I don't know, I think it's a pretty solid difference. All right, so let's see. I think we'll just go ahead and start with the heat sealing around the edges, and then we'll come back to these after that. I'm gonna start down here, so we're wrapped around this corner. And remember, when you're heat sealing things, you have to be careful if there's other parts that are on there. So like this fender's done already. So when I'm heat sealing this part, I'm actually gonna be heat sealing both of these. And so you just need to be mindful that there's paint protection film on both of those parts, because you don't wanna bunch up or damage the material on here while you're working on this part. It's just easy to forget when you're trying to just get this edge, and if the headlight was already done, I'd need to be being really careful of the headlight as well. So that part like wraps in there and then goes too far and then hangs off this edge a little, which is kind of unfortunate. So I'm gonna try and wrap that around to the back, but I really don't have much control over whether that sticks and stays down or not, because I wasn't able to like prep that surface back in there, back behind. I think that really I don't know, it's nice that it goes over and wraps around that edge, because it gets rid of the seam, or the line right here on the edge. But at the same time, when it doesn't work out correctly, now that's hanging off just a tiny bit, and there's almost no way of trimming that off. So, and if it just keeps popping up like that, I may try something to trim that off, but you have to be super careful, because obviously you can hit the paint back in there very easily. At least with the method that I would use to get that trimmed off. I mean, really, maybe you could do that. That's a headache though. I would skip covering that part just for the disaster of it not fitting correctly. So I'm using my fingernail in there right now. And when I use my fingernail, I don't like to just push through, because I'm kind of stuffing my fingernail between those two parts, and so it gets a little tight in there. And so what I like to do is kind of go back and forth, and that just makes it so that I'm not just pushing like this and bunching that material up on the edge. There's much less possibility of damaging that edge and crinkling it up if you go back and forth like this. All right, let's take a look at this one and see how it's doing, if we're having the same issue as the other side. So just barely up here, just barely. It's just barely hanging over. I don't know if you could see that in there. It looks white, like a white line. And then right here, we don't have it. Between about here and here, it goes away, and then it picks back up here at the top. And that's where it's hanging over. I mean, really, you just have to leave that now, or you have to basically, I would be cutting it off like across the face here. We do have our customers come back in 3 weeks to a month so that we can double check everything and make sure that everything has stayed down nicely. And so that would be a time where, you know, I would remember this and take a look at that and see how we're doing. Okay, let's go around this side marker here. And back in this wheel well area. Now I'm gonna save like underneath for later. When I lift the car, I'll lift the car up higher and then we'll get that part. So when we're doing these edges here, we are pushing down the bumper and this black plastic piece. And we're just working our way around very methodically. Okay, now back to the bumper. We've got our seam here, so we want to go, when we push this down, we want to go with the seam. Don't go against it. We don't want to take a risk of damaging one of those edges. So definitely go with it. And then you should notice, like if you're bumping in a little hard with these seams, you should see a little bit of silver in the seam. And then you just want to heat that up and massage that down. And right now I was using my fingernail to get more pressure on that because we're bumping in a little hard right here, which is fine. It just needs a little bit of extra attention to lay down and get rid of that silver. And now, I mean, this is another good tool for that. Sometimes the fingernail works just fine. And that looks really good now. You know, I know that I was saying in the video that we could have come all the way to here, but this is 100% a better seam. Like how this worked out way better than being over here. So I know I kind of considered it a little bit of a mistake that I didn't make both sides come to the same point, so we could have been out here. But this seam in this area, when you're walking around the car, because of that bend right there, that's a great place to hide a seam. Out here, where it's just flat, it's gonna show that seam a lot more than it's gonna show in an area with a bend. So having it on the bend is a way better plan. So in the long run here with this install, it worked out way better for us to have the seam there versus right here. Okay, and then be careful here when you're coming back this way, because you could hit this corner of this black piece here and bunch up the PPF on there. So just always be, you know, watching out for the other parts. All right. And we'll come across the front here. And once again, when I get over here, I want to be real careful of this corner. So everything that I do is going to be, I'm not going to come this way and even risk running into that corner. So I'll work away from that corner. Okay, let's get a little bit further here, and then let's take care of this seam now. Now be careful, you know, we've been putting a lot of heat all in this area, and so it's not going to take much heat on here to warm this up, because we've already got a lot of heat out here, and we don't want to focus now a bunch of heat on this and overheat this part here. Okay, now since we're working around this, let's go ahead and get this whole bottom section. Okay, and then we're to here now. Basically, we'll work our way around this part. Way back in there, so the fingernail is really working the best back in there. You could also, you know, try that or flip this over and use this here. Okay, let's go ahead and finish this part here by going all the way around it. Okay, back in there, I can see that there's a little bit that needs to just be pushed down a little. I can't get my fingernail in there, so we're going to use the edge of this tool here. Let's get back in here now. And something else that I noticed about this piece here is that, well, let's finish this real quick. So let's get this corner here, and then let's get around this side marker, and then we'll okay. So something I noticed here is that we ended up with a you know, I'd say a relatively bad silvering right here. So it's like a stretch mark or something. Maybe when I'm editing this video, I'll be able to pinpoint when that happens. I don't know why though. I mean, I think we stretched from like way back here over out to this edge. So I'm not sure. I must have touched there and got that to stick a little and then stretched a little more. And that's what did this here. There's something caused that, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm really surprised that on such a part where everything went so well that we have any distortion on there. All right, hopefully that's visible. So what we're gonna do is hide that a little, and because all we really need to do is get rid of the silver, and then that's not gonna catch somebody's eye anymore. Now we won't be able to get rid of the distortion that's gonna leave in the adhesive, which will basically be a little bit of like rippliness. This all looks like glass, and this spot will not look like that now, but we can get rid of the silverness. Just like that. So we warm it up, and then I'm going to go over it with a tool like this, and we'll, depending on how well, I mean, it's already gone as much as it's going to go away, maybe a little more right here. But what we do is warm that up, run over it with a tool like this. Some people use a spoon. I mean, there's just different things you can use, like a so yeah, there's different tools that you can use for this, but I choose to use this tool here. And we start out with less pressure and then give more as necessary. And what we're doing is just massaging that silver down and away. And so I'll start by just going across like this, and then you can get more pressure on it if you need. And then if that doesn't work real good, I'll start some circles and give it a little more pressure. You just have to be really careful, because with this tool, or with any tool while you're doing this, because it's so warm, you do definitely run the risk of overheating that. And not so much that it'll be overheated, just that you have to know that when you heat it up, it's gonna become very malleable. And so a tool like this can dig in very easily with too much pressure, and then you'll ruin that spot even, or just make it worse, right? We're just trying to make it better so it's it can go home. Not make it worse so we have to start over. So the hood's open, so I can't go up any higher than that. So I'm gonna sit down here and get underneath here, and we'll heat seal these bottoms, this whole bottom area underneath. And this oh my gosh, that's okay. This gun was like at almost 1200 degrees. It's too hot. You want to be between like 700 and 800, really. Yeah, I was kind of noticing, I was like, wow, I got to really get the heat gun away from this material. It's really getting it warm. Yeah, it's going to do that at 1200 degrees very quickly. I'm a real genius sometimes. Must be my first day. All right, so we'll just continue to heat this up and push all this down. And there is right here, you can see that dot. And these must be painted parts, because this is an imperfection. I mean, it could just be plastic as well, but I don't normally see so many dots in just plastic. I would guess that these are painted. But let's go ahead and see if we can hide that a little, because I did pull the film back during this installation to pick out this piece of dirt. Turned out not to be a piece of dirt. Okay, so I'm just massaging that down, and we're just seeing if we can hide that a little. You know, that way, better finished looking product, potentially. It's really hard to hide those things, especially on black. All right, so what next? Got all that pushed down, so let's go ahead and push down these parking sensors, and then we'll cut out around the tow hook cover. And if you want to see a full video on tow hook covers, I have that on the channel. Goes over exactly how we do those, because we're not going to cover everything in this video with that. Okay, I'm not going to put, so let's turn this heat off. I'm not going to use heat during this process. But you can see that some of this is already stuck down, so we're going to work away from that area, and we're just going to push that down. And you want to be very strategic about how you do that, because you don't want to leave air pockets in there. And if you just like go like that, you're going to leave air pockets in there for sure. And it's, you know, first time goes on this. We don't get a second chance. Same with this one here. So you can see that middle's already stuck down a little. So I'm going to start over here and kind of catch everything up to that part, and then I'm going to work this over, and then I'm going to go down into this part like that. And I mean, look at that. That's a great way to do these. Those look fantastic. So on this car, I would not even be cutting these out unless that doesn't stay stuck down. And then I would be. This one, these two in the front came out really good just during the install. Okay. So again, we'll catch up to this, to the center there. Work our way down, all the way over. Okay, and there we go. Got a little something right there. You can see that little bit of white. I'm not sure what that is, but I don't know. It's a little distortion maybe in the adhesive. We're kind of hiding it a little bit, but I'm not really worried about that. That's not a big deal at all, and that's more than worth it to have that final install look like that. Okay, last one here. Okay. All right, so this, I'm just gonna go ahead and run my finger just around this edge a little bit, make sure we're completely off the face with that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and trim this out. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna look in there and see how much I can wrap to in there. And it's just about 1/8 of an inch or so. So that's about where we wanna stay with this cut. We just wanna go around the edge and stick to that. We don't want enough material that it goes back and runs into that part in the back. Okay, like that. And then at some point we should be able to get our finger in here and hold on to this and put some tension on it. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to put little relief cuts in this. I don't know if this is really necessary, but I'm doing it anyway. This will just help relieve a little bit of the tension when this wraps around in the corner here. Heat this up now, and I'll start in the corner, work away from it, start in the corner, work away from it. All right, I'm gonna do one final heat on this now that it's all down. Okay. All right, like I said, we're not going to finish all this tow hook cover together, but there is a video on that. I will lay a piece over this that then will wrap around to the sides here. And then I will really heat the snot out of the sides and push them down to make sure that they don't pop up. Sometimes you can even wrap around to the back, although that's not usually an option. But definitely around to the side here. And then that extra heat will really get that to stick down. And then when I'm putting the extra heat on, I make sure to kind of hit it like this way so that I'm not overheating the face here. But you could see that on that video on just these parts. All right, let's take care of one last thing here. So So this is where, I mean, I don't even understand this bumper. I mean, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It takes 11 holes in a, or, you know, indents, whatever you want to call them, in a bumper in order on a Kia to hold the license plate. That's ridiculous. And it's crazy to me that it has all these indents for where they want you to line up the license plate holder, but then they don't use them and they drill 3 separate holes in the bumper. But let's go ahead and cut around the ones that we are going to be using, because there's going to be a screw going through those, and I don't want to screw right through the material because there's a possibility of creating a problem at that point underneath the license plate holder. So I find it just best to just go ahead and trim those out now. That way we don't run a screw through them and twist things and get things all twisted up in there. Then it's a possibility of it'll pull the material off a little bit around the hole. So this just makes that not a problem. I mean, the circle doesn't need to be great. It's all going to be covered anyway. I'm not saying, you know, come out here, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Like when I'm cutting, this is different than when I'm cutting around a parking sensor. I'm gonna spend a lot more time around a parking sensor making sure that I've got a really nice circle going. Okay. Terrific. Well, that's the process of installing paint protection film on this front bumper of this 2025 Kia K5. So hopefully you found something helpful there. And if you did, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Mom.